Best looking unicorns of Superbooth. Mike, birdkids, how are you?
Good, thank you, sir. And wunderschönen guten Morgen from Berlin, ladies and gents. We are here with the unicorn stand, formerly known as birdkids.
Well, unicorns and ravens. You're not totally one species specific.
We're, non-species specific, non-binary, and so on and so on. Inclusive. So yeah, we've got the focus set this year on multicolor operation, I would say.
Yeah. So we've updates to Crow's Nest as well. I mean, let's dive in. Take us through it. It's also nice to see Raven developing along nicely from Kickstarter too. Where would you like to start?
I think let's start with the Raven. I think that's a good starting point. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
With you, yeah. So I think folks are eager to see how it developed, and this would be your first and closest look at the actual thing. This is a final prototype unit, which is going to look exactly like that in the production. So I'm going to give you what you're hearing right now are two voices combined together. In the middle, that's your starting point, that's your crossfader. So we can just fade between voice 1. This is this one. And voice 2. Right here. They are wide range, and they track perfectly unisono between C1 and C9, which is a little bit akin to trying to calibrate two 88 weighted piano, grand pianos to track unisono.
Okay, well,
almost impossible, and in the analog domain even more so, but I think we've done a really good job, if I dare say so. Nice and mellow, and razy and buzzy. And let's stick in some pulse width modulation, because folks like to pulse width. Or how do you feel about modulating the crossfader? Let's see what that sounds like. Oh, yeah, that's fading between two. But let's go into audio range. Resonance.
It's all very smooth.
Yeah, but it can be
in the way that the modulation responds. Not that it's a soft sounding instrument, but smooth in that the way it took from LFO up into audio ranges across resonance, PWM, crossfade.
One thing that you might have noticed is that we have separate controls for coarse and fine-tune as opposed to the first prototype that we showed on Kickstarter. The addition is, of course, having an LFO range per oscillator, so it's as easy as switching into LFO mode. And then the second voice becomes an LFO, which goes from 0.1 hertz to somewhere audio range-ish. And the other thing is we have the opto drive saturation right here for the VCA, which is going to give you a bite and sustain. And smooth out the response a little bit. Of course, right now with this type of multi-layered circuit, you would have to account for a lot of headroom going into the crossfader, going into the filter, going into the VCA. So of course, you will be able to actually use the filter as a headroom stage for your crossfader output. The way that the Raven works is it's fully modular by now. We started with a semi-modular system, but now it's fully modular. Now, having this fully modular approach still allows us to have some normalizations. As you will see on the crossfader, the voice 1 and voice 2 are normalized in a way that they have a square and a variable pulse on the voice, and they are pre-patched, but as soon as you stick something into the second crossfader input, it's decoupled.
Yes.
So you will be able to have DC or even any type of signal, be it audio signal or modulation signal, used in the crossfader. As soon as you take the crossfader output right here, you are also decoupling the crossfader from flow.
Yeah.
Thus,
So
your
then you can
filter.
patch into the
Exactly.
filter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can patch into the filter at any point. You can also patch a third signal into the filter if you want to do that, and that's absolutely possible. You would have to tweak the headroom accordingly. So, for example,
Of course.
if we were to let me show you. If we were to take the noise output and patch it into the filter, which is the filter input right here. I'm sorry for the short cables. So we have the noise already patched in, right? And then you would have to accordingly dial the headroom into the filter input slightly back. But you would...
That's going to allow people to either drive the filter or clean it up.
Exactly. You have at least 3 points where you can saturate. 1 point, the first point would be going into the crossfader with soft clipping, a diode clipping. We never hear a harsh buzz. It's always nicely harmonically distorting. So you would be able to saturate in the crossfader going in. You would be able to saturate in going into the filter. You would be able to finally saturate additionally in the VCA, and then if you are inclined to do so, you can add some bite and a slight smooth off using the opto compressor. I'm sorry, the opto VCA, which is a serial circuit going after the clean VCA. So what we figured out is that the Vactral-based VCA by itself would yield a very sluggish response, as we know from a Vactral-based circuit. And we found that though we might at some points desire to do that, it would be a nice idea to actually give people the freedom to still have a fast attack response by serially including it after the clean VCA, and then you can dial to taste using your envelopes stages. So I'm gonna give you a nice and plucky attack here. That's the opto, right? So it's not sluggish at all if you want to, but if you want, of course, you can dial the typical response.
It's very responsive.
Yeah, it's very responsive, and that's the idea, to give people something very moldable, very shapeable. Yeah, give them the tools. The tools should sound by themselves very, very, very impressive.
Of course.
Each stage should be like, that's what I want to hear. And then you can tweak it to your taste. The additional the additional function you might have noticed is the amplitude modulation possibility for the first voice. So the first voice will give you a switch going between the default frequency modulation into amplitude modulation. So you can use amplitude modulation for the first voice going into your modulation input. This will affect both voices first, but if you switch on the amplitude modulation, this will affect just the first voice. It's unipolar.
Okay.
Frequency modulation itself is bipolar, as you see. And of course the ability to cross-modulate by using the second voice as an LFO. You will just pick any of your... And of course the sync. Let's use the sync here. Let's take this. So it's also kind of self-enclosed if you think about it. You have all your possibilities of modulating things by themselves. And one thing that needs to be said is that the filter now tracks extremely well, almost the same range as the VCO. It's very, very close. And of course, you'll be able to go into self-oscillation using the filter itself. I'm going to give you a quick VCF output here. And then we're going to go into... So you can use it as a sine wave if you so wish. yeah, that's the Raven in a very, very short overview.
So, roughly how far off is Raven now?
We've just finalized the first batch, and we're going to ship the first units to the bakers next week. We have roughly about 10 to 20 emails per week asking about the availability of Raven. I'm very, very happy that the response is a very positive one from people, and they're very interested in that. I have to, of course, take care of the backers first. That's our first priority, because they were there for us, and it's, hashtag backers get it all. So,
we've also got some updates to the Crow's Nest. We've got the Unicorn Boom, which we can't ignore.
Guys, so I'm sure you want to get some of that unicorn funkiness. Okay, so how can such a cute creature sound so gnarly? The flowers light up and everything, but you know what? We're just listening to the actual kick output, and that's not just a kick module. People think, oh, that's a really nice and thumpy kick, but there is actually a Vactral-based optocompressor in there.
Okay.
And it's normalized. The inputs of the Vactral compressor is standalone, but you'll be able to actually get it without patching anything through it. So the kick is always. I'm sorry, gents. That's rude. Here's your sense. That's the threshold. That's how much it will actually try to compress it. And that's your makeup gain, and that's your input level. And we can go in a nice compact, minimal.
It's really throwing a lot of air out of these speakers.
Yeah, it's very, very. I'm thinking about having this actually set up for my mom for summer. She asked for an AC for a long time. I think I'm just gonna build up like a tile of 4 unicorns going at different speeds. That should provide a nice circulation.
And this was a DIY workshop for Superbooth, but will they be available? I'm sure people watching would like to get them.
Yes, we're gonna make those available. So the key factor here is that's not purely a birdkids module as such. This one has been developed with my analog engineer, who is also the engineer behind the Raven, my longtime friend and collaborator, Sebastian Wetzinger, from Vienna. And Sebastian had this idea of actually, he's one of the best educators I know. Let me mellow up on the kick here. And Sebastian's idea was basically that he wants to get people to understand how those things work.
An educational project.
Yeah, that's as simple as that. He really knows how to explain this shit. And the idea here was, let's try a simple circuit, and with the time frame that we usually have in DIY workshops, which is like 4 to 5 hours, what we want to focus on is not so much the soldering part of things, but we want to explain how the circuit works. We want to make it possible for people to tweak it, to bend it, to make it their own, to kind of say, okay, I not just know how to, like solder a capacitor or a resistor, but I actually know where to swap them, where to maybe hack the circuit. And that's what I think we've achieved really well. We had a phenomenal response from people. Those will be available as assembled units. We've recently launched a Big Cartel shop. It's the only official birdkids web shop. It's birdkids.bigcartel.com, where we want to focus on doing one-offs, exclusives. Okay. So in no way are we trying to compete with retail or anything like that, because the actual modular retail is a very, very important, crucial part of this business.
Huge part of the scene.
We are a community. And as such, we're not trying to compete, nor are we trying to do any price dumping politics. It's something that we're strictly gonna, all of us, hold up against the current trends and tendencies. So those are exclusives, things that are not available anymore anywhere. And one-offs, like I said. So the next one in line after the unicorn boom is gonna be Moore Cowbell.
Okay.
And the Moore Cowbell is basically a cowbell unit with a lot of Roger Moore-ness.
Yeah.
So Yeah, okay, so this year, Unicorn Boom, Raven, we've got the Bird Nest. The Bird Nest is basically a software-based solution, as we presented last year. And we're gonna do a couple of videos for you guys. I think it's best to see it on the screen, which we're gonna submit to public and show you what we actually can do with that. I think people were... We got some mixed response, to be honest. A lot of people saw the potential in that. A lot of people didn't really feel that the hardware solution was something that they would totally be happy with, seeing as it was 60 HP, the Crow Intelligence. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta say, let's listen to people and let's try to find some common ground. And the common ground was the software side of things is something that we want to make available to the public, being open source. That's what we prioritized first. So we're going to make the software available. We're going to let people play around with it. You don't really have any requirements hardware-wise. You can just use it straight out of the box in your browser. And we're going to launch that as soon as we can, as soon as we feel that it's bug-free for the first beta, and let people play around with it and give us their thoughts. No obligations towards hardware, and then slowly we're going to give you some ideas how to implement it in a hardware waveform. Here we will have a MIDI controller later during the day and show some capabilities. We're going to focus on giving people not just the audio side of things, not just the controller side of things, but also a way to visualize their patches and visualize their output. So if you have an LFO, we want to see some spectrum waves, and you can really play with shaders by now, like WebGL. You can play with CSS. You can style it the way that you want. You can output it to your phone, to your iPad, to your computer. So we're looking forward to show people that, and we want to focus on giving like a hands-on approach. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing those videos you release. I think that's the best way to do it, to show it on a screen, let people see it, let them play with it. Great. Well, thank you. It's nice to check these out. I look forward to the Unicorn Boom. I'm still really excited about Raven since the Kickstarter.
Yeah. You're the next in line to get the Raven final unit.
There'll be more video.
And there's going to be more video, guys. And I think somewhere at the end of next month, we're going to have also...
this is a real thing of beauty.
Yeah. This one. Okay, so... I promised not to cry, but we are going to discontinue the Bateleur.
Okay.
We are going to discontinue that module simply for the fact that the transistor-based design that we have here, matched pairs, is obsolete.
Okay.
We knew that already 2-3 years ago, so I made sure to actually buy all the available transistors worldwide. And the thing is, having a matched pair and about 400 to 500 units already out there gives you a certain responsibility that 20 or 30 years from now, you want to make sure that people can still get theirs exchanged.
Of course.
So if I were to shoot out another batch right now, I might run into problems sourcing those transistors or having because down the line you want to be able to exchange your capacitors or whatever needs to be exchanged. And that was my focus. We promised people this is a lifetime warranty thing. We want this instrument to age well, like good wine, and I think we'll be able to do that. But it's also time to let go of the production side of things and let this instrument become kind of like a public thing that just goes into... And it's matured quite well over the last 3 years, and we've seen some amazing musical output. The sheer amount of albums recorded with that by some very high-profile people is astonishing, and that's. But even the simplest email in the morning of someone in Alaska telling me how they love their Bateleur is what keeps me going.
It's amazing that you want to support this for 20, 30 years. It's not just we could do another batch and sell them. You need to keep stock to be able to support this.
Yes, that's a prerequisite. I would feel kind of, I would not feel well with myself if I were to, not...
That really speaks to your intentions, though, and the kind of quality and the experience and the user experience, customer experience that you want to give.
Well, but I come from a production sort of things. Before I even got into modular, which I was scared shitless of when I first saw it, I understood my synthesizers. I had about 30 of them. I had everything from an old Mini Moog Model D to a sequential Prophet. And I was never kind of a collector as such. Okay. I always had that gear. Sort of, I always thought I have to try it. I would never want to regret it. But after maybe 2 or 3 months, you would crystallize like what's really in your workflow, what's really the kind of, sometimes those would be the most unlikely things. Like I would always go, like for example, for the Prophet 600 over P5, right?
Okay.
And that's some people are like, why would you do that? Because there were some qualities in there that I loved. And that's my approach to modular. I always wanted to do kind of my own thing. And modular gives you, of course, obviously those possibilities. So when I started actually working on hardware with my engineers, the idea was that we are all music people. We all love music. So one guy maybe is a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, but the other one is a synth freak, and I'm a techno nerd or whatever. We all have a common language, it's music. It has to be pleasing, and it also has to be an instrument. That's the core point. It's an instrument. Even the unicorn boom, the way that Sebastian approached the idea of explaining the circuit is make it your own. Own it. Know it inside out. Don't get into buying stuff and just fill your room with random instruments which you have no idea how to actually get the proper sound from. Focus on 2 or 3 things, make them your own, grow with them, let them mature, let them pass on to second hands, and so on and so on. That's the approach. So we will see Bateleurs going from user to user. We will see them going from generation to generation. We will see great albums, great music coming out of the Bateleur, coming out of the Raven, coming out of the other series, and that's what I would like to have as a legacy.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing and a nice place to end.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Thank you.